snow's new to her, and he's discovered a penchant for not coming back properly, so I'm having to put her back on the training lead again. Getting better again, but log. No, not the thing that goes down your toilet, but sometimes it might as well be. Now, in fact, we're talking about the function on your camera. Now, log is quite often misunderstood, and it's often completely overused when you don't need to. What log does is it gets you more dynamic range off the centre of your camera. And you might be thinking, well, what's not to like? Well, quite a lot as it happens. For one thing, it depends on the camera you're using. How much actual usable dynamic range you get really depends on that. And if you're using a small sensor camera, like I'm using an action camera right at this moment, which has noisy shadows, for example, and really doesn't have great dynamic range to begin with, and it's an 8-bit recording, using log doesn't really get you as much as you think. What you're doing with log is you're cramming more dynamic range at the expense of your tonal range. And so when you have a limited recording sort of space, just an 8-bit color space, you can cause issues such as color banding and whatever else. And you know, if you're using a log recording and then all you're doing is slapping a LUT on it, which in many cases is just getting you back what you would have had you just left your camera in its standard Rec 709 or whatever setting, you're actually you're wasting time, but B, you're actually restoring that sort of contrast back to a picture that will have less tonal range because it hasn't been done at the time of recording. You crammed extra dynamic range at the expense of your tonal range. So, what to do? Don't be afraid of using your normal gamma settings on your camera or normal color settings on your camera. Log has turned into a bit of a FOMO for video. People have this fear of missing out. Oh, I'm missing loads of picture information. Actually, log, it gets you some picture information, but it throws away other picture information, depending on your recording. Log is effectively a compression system. It's compressing dynamic range into a smaller bucket, as it were, which is your 8-bit Rec 709, for example, recording system, as opposed to RAW, which is, that is getting you the full dynamic range of your sensor into a very wide gamut, high tonal range recording system, because RAW, as the name implies, is pretty much the raw data coming off the sensor. There's a bit more to it than that, but that's the layman's version of it. So what I would say is maybe try experimenting without using log. Try getting the picture right in camera. Some of the cameras these days, they have a great look, and if all you're going to do is adjust the color a bit, adjust the color temperature, maybe you want to cool off the shadows, warm up the highlights, that kind of thing, you can do that perfectly easily with a standard style recording. You don't need log to be able to do that. If you're going all out and you have sort of a 10-bit recording, and you're going to be doing very selective grading, you're going to be using power windows, and really digging deep into your grade, then yes, log is a perfectly viable and useful solution to have. But if you're making quick videos, if you want to save yourself some time and have some great looking video at the end of it, you can use your normal recording settings. You don't need log. Now, I know people are going to say, there's going to be all these comments telling me I'm wrong. Sorry, I'm right. But what you've got to understand is that I'm not saying that log is useless. I'm not saying that you should never use log. What I'm saying is that you should be a bit more considerate when you use it and what you're using it for and the cameras that you are using it on. just take a bit more care, give it a bit more thought. And also, recording with your normal recording system where you have a more limited dynamic range, it makes you a better camera operator, because it means that you have to decide your exposure much more critically. You have to make decisions about how your picture is going to look at the stage that you are shooting at. You can't use log as your crutch. So even on a high bit rate, on a high bit depth camera recording, recording with the normal gamma and color settings can actually overall make you a better shooter, but it can also save you a lot of time in post if you really don't need to be doing deep downgrading in the first place. So that's all I've got to say for now. I've rambled on a bit. Yeah, give it a go. Let me know what you think. Constructive comments welcome. Try any recordings and see how it goes for you. Okay. Ta-ta.